Now, you're playing with podcast.
So, we're coming back from Papa Pinball for Pinburg 2014. It was Scott's virtual experience there.
Woohoo!
But instead of talking about pinball yet again, let's talk modern gaming.
Woohoo!
We got the PlayStation 4. We got the Xbox Oni. Either you guys have one of them yet?
Nope.
Planning on getting one soon?
Nope.
Oh, me neither. Okay, thanks for listening, guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Just
good stuff.
April 1st.
Good stuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. On the nose. Gotcha.
I have to cut that up, but that's viewer. Thanks for that. That makes even more sense. That's oh shit. That's tomorrow or Tuesday. I should put this out tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah,
or
you
Monday,
tomorrow.
Tuesday. Yeah.
We're not in the car. You can cut it in the car while you're at the store. That.
Well, we'll see. But
Mobile office. As long as you don't get motion sickness.
I kind of just want to. We've been around on and off for 3 years now.
Oh gosh, has it been that long? That's awesome.
Was it 2012 or 2011? I mean, we're horribly bad at being consistent and putting out a consistent product, and
we're consistently inconsistent though.
That's about it.
There's something to be said for that.
No, there's not. I guess stick to it-iveness. But this is more of a Tan question because Scott's more of the intermittent guest host kind of guy. But, when Tan and I started this thing, we were pretty much game collectors at that point. And part of the reason why we were doing this is that the game collecting part's not so exciting anymore. And you hear other collectors talk about this, and that's more of a YouTube thing, I guess, for game collectors to talk. But, going to shows and game stores and stuff and finding new, exciting things that we don't own for inexpensive prices is pretty much impossible these days. If there's something that I don't have that I want, it's normally way too expensive for me to buy, and you can only really get it on eBay or at a convention or something where it's several $100s for something that I don't own.
And it's not even that, the price really seems like it matches. It's a market-driven price. It's not like the value of the product, which is one of the big problems that I have.
If you listen to, say, the Pat the NES Punk's Completely Unnecessary podcast, they cover this stuff a lot more because he's more of a collector and his co-host works at a game store and he's more in tune with the collecting scene. But the non-game players have gotten into this. The people that treat it as an investment or a way to make money. The people that are investing in the VGAs, the people that were into comic books for the collecting and the money-making part of it are getting into the hobby more and more. I don't know if that's as much true in the Midwest, but definitely on a national scale, that's definitely the case. And it was kind of garbage. Like people had, you still got a Nintendo in your closet? That shit's the lame. I got a Sony PlayStation or a PlayStation 2. That old stuff is stupid and garbage. You can have it. I actually got an NES in the late 90s, about 1996 or 97, for $25, including a bunch of this guy's games that he was just getting rid of. And that's unheard of these days.
I can't tell you how many of my great scores back in the day were people trading in old Nintendo games to GameStop in 2000, perfectly happy to get their $1.50.
Yep.
So they could sink it all into the latest PlayStation 2 game or pre-ordering the system.
And I think it's Nintendo collecting in particular, which is why I'm so turned off by Nintendo. Well, one of the reasons. I mean, I was always that kid that wasn't following the main system. I had it in television first when everybody else had Atari, and my cousin had a Sega Master System when that was out and hot. Or not, it was never hot, when the Nintendo was hot.
Yeah.
And I've always had this mindset since I was picked on a lot in grade school that I always rationalized the other side. So I've got that always working in my mind. why the popular thing isn't so great, why the other side is a lot better. It's not always true, but I have that mental capacity that by exercising it so often of...
It's be contrarian.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm contrarian. That's the right. I should have said that the
Perfect
first
word.
time and not waste so many words. But that is a nice mental exercise. That's a nice skill to have to at least second guess why something's popular or to find chinks in the armor. Because I do love Nintendo, but I don't like worship it, and I'm not gonna spend hundreds of dollars for shitty black box games, for instance.
Yeah, it keeps you from being a blind fanboy.
Donkey Kong Jr. Math or Stadium Events or any of those other ridiculously expensive NES games that aren't fun at all or just label variations of other things aren't really worth spending that kind of money on. Not the money that they command on eBay and elsewhere. And if I...
Didn't you do that for the Dreamcast, though? Like, I mean, didn't you spend a bunch of extra money for the some of the different variations or whatnot? Like, are you still trying to get the
I did, but I didn't spend hundreds of dollars on those. My only Dreamcast missing game is a complete... Fuck. That's the sound of dropping a microphone. That,
We are experiencing potholes in the road. Please stand by.
That was my drop the mic moment for all the Nintendo collectors.
Yeah,
Boom.
I'll edit that out, hopefully, if it made a horrible sound.
I'm sure it did.
We're going to rename you to CM Chris.
Yeah. I'm the best at quitting. The thing with the Dreamcast games, they weren't that expensive. You're talking $5 a piece. I really did not spend that much on most of my Dreamcast games because it was 2003-ish when I started really, maybe a little later than that, but not much later, starting collecting all the Dreamcast games. Nowadays, you don't see Dreamcast games anywhere.
No, not at all.
They've almost all dried up. Now, common Dreamcast games, except for like the NFL 2Ks and whatnot, if you're lucky to find one cheaper than $10.
And that may be the most annoying thing about the current state of video game collecting is even common stuff goes for what seemingly is way too much in relation to what their supply actually is.
There's a bubble. I mean,
$5 combat cards,
yeah.
Yeah.
which are actually like, I mean, it's been a joke for like, what, 10 years now?
Yeah.
And it's finally like turning around and becoming.
Oh, they're all
more, like,
$5
far more
everywhere.
common, yeah.
It's fucking combat. I mean, Atari Age still buys combats for 50 cents a piece for store credit, and I've got a couple places that'll help me out with their unwanted combats because they have so many of them and nobody wants to buy them. But it used to be I could pick up cards lots of places, and now that's gone. That's done with. But the Dreamcast, I completed it basically because it was cheap. That was the biggest reason, and I love the system. But the only reason I went for a complete collection was because it was inexpensive and fun to do. It wasn't. I only paid more than $50 for maybe 5 games total.
What's the most expensive you paid for a game?
100 Panzer Dragoon Saga in about 1999, maybe 2000. It's about $150 on eBay. And that was I want to buy it right now on eBay type of impulse buy, and that's probably worth about 3 times that much now.
Easy.
And I like the game a lot, but I don't think I'd ever spend that much for a game again unless it's something I truly love. I mean, even a game I really, really like, I could have a hard time spending that kind of money on it.
That's a heck of a question.
What about you?
Used or new?
Just any?
Steel Battalion.
Okay, after that, because you bought that new when it came out.
Yeah, I bought Steel Battalion new when it came out.
And you're buying a joystic for $150.
Yeah, all my expensive ones are all joystick ones. I think my next one down from that are the 2 Ace Combat sticks for like the PS2 and the 360. They were like $150 or $180 a piece. And I think my next one down from that was like my Papa Music controller and Papa Music collection for like I think $130. The Dreamcast ones.
So any games without the controllers? Is it just your ports that you bought new?
Yeah, I don't know. I rarely. If it's not a controller, I really don't break 100. It's really hard to get me to break 3 digits on a game, like a single game.
But you've never really completed a collection, though, either.
No, I just.
You don't even have that.
I think most recently, the most expensive one I did that wasn't like a collector's edition or anything, it was just like an expensive used game, was Brigandine for 80.
Which isn't that excessive.
No, not at all. No. Either that or the retro USB Star Ocean for, I think, 75 in shipping.
But you've even said on the way up here that you're not into you're not buying too many games for collecting's sake anymore. You're buying a lot of pre-productions now. That's kind of your main focus.
It's not my main focus. It's definitely my impulse Achilles heel. Like if I go to a show and there's someone that has like a table of repros and it's like Japanese games that are translated but I wanted to play it back in the day, I would go nuts on those. Like money will turn up from wherever and I'll buy like a stack of them.
Would it be fair to say that the pendulum has shifted from you buy a game for the sake of having it in the collection to you buy it for the sake of playing it? If you don't think you're going to play it,
no, it definitely has. And I think that's because of the pricing on everything. Because like back in the day, Nintendo games. When we were getting Nintendo games for like, what did Crazy Bird sell them for? Like $3 a piece or $3
Yeah, there was a store across the street from where we worked that we went to pretty much every lunch break because we were two single guys in our 20s making ungodly amounts of money for single guys in their 20s. So we'd waste all our money on goddamn video games. So besides Dreamcast games, which I just bought at the time when it was new, you're talking 99, 2000. Lots of budget games, like, oh my god, like I bought GigaWing for $20 brand new, and Mars Matrix $20 for brand new, and lots of $40 games and $50 games. Phantasy Star Online's coming out. But besides all those, this guy, because Nintendo was so in the dumps, he bought 10,000 NES games for $10,000.
Wow!
And he sold them $5 a piece, or 3 for 10, or something like that, or 5 for it was. And this was every NES game. They didn't discriminate. I bought all the Mega Mans, Dragon Warrior 2 and 3, stuff that's ridiculously obscene buying at the price that we bought them at today's prices. And back then, it wasn't super ridiculous. It was a good deal back then, but it wasn't, oh my god, it's crazy. But back then, the idea of what was rare back then was different too, like Tengen Tetris and the Bible Adventures and all those weird ass.
The Super Dodgeball. Super Dodgeball was like one of the rarest games back then.
The concept of rarity was different.
When I went to Arcade Legacy 2 weeks ago, I picked up Super Dodgeball, $10.
Yep. It's
wow.
Crazy. There was a point in time where that was like a $60 game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back when Nintendo games were worth nothing.
Arkanoid with the mouse controller.
Oh man, yeah.
It's hard to find now, but it went from unbelievably rare and expensive to now just a little more than average.
Unless you worked at Funko Land, who didn't.
Yeah, I got mine for $3 as a generic NES controller.
Yeah, same here. They had one price for NES controllers, no matter what NES controller it was. So
it was nice to get my generic GameCube video cable there that just happened to be a component.
Oh, nice.
Wow. But
yeah, I got an $8. No, did I get it? Did you get it for me, Chris? The GameCube keyboard for PSO, the Japanese one.
Yeah, I found it. I got you to get it.
Okay.
But yeah, it was that was a third-party GameCube controller. It's the rare GameCube keyboard.
Yeah. For $8 because
$8.
Again, EB, it's generic $8. Like third-party game controller, whatever.
And you can still find these kind of scores, but they are a lot fewer and a lot further between than they used to be. If you look online and things like Reddit,
you don't find them at game stores anymore. You find them at thrift stores or weird places. But they're just, it's so that's the thing. Part of the reason why we did the podcast is because we would talk about shit in cars and these types of road trips, which is why I kind of like the Gorilla podcast, even though I'm hunching forward holding the blue microphone in front of everybody. But we would talk about this kind of stuff. The road trip was as fun as the actual shopping part.
Oh, yeah.
And between the podcast and Hex Decathlons, like getting everybody to play the stuff that I really enjoy, my focus is the buying stuff, even though I probably still do it a little too much. It's odd crap now. I mean, and it's like when I go to thrift stores, I'll buy stuff that I already have, just kind of like as a rescue project. Like some people bring in too many kittens. I'm rescuing Sega Genesis systems for $5 from thrift store.
You're doing God's work.
Yeah, hopefully.
I think you are.
I'll have my Genesis spayed and neutered, and then
Oh, God.
yeah. But
It's kind of weird though, you know, if you go on like Reddit and you go to like, you know, game collecting, you see all kinds of people post, I just scored this, I just found this.
yeah,
But it's the difference between the way the world was 10 years ago when you only shared that information with, you know, your few
Right.
friends, maybe a couple buddies.
now people are posting their shopping trip videos. And I mean, we did an episode when we did that game trip all around the city of Columbus, and that was fun. But I mean, I'm married with a kid and a mortgage, and we don't do that much anymore. Now it's more about having game parties, and we're looking to start up maybe a retro gaming league around Columbus.
And I think the other thing too that's come down to it as well is that our collections have gotten as big as they have, that it's harder for us to find those things that we still need.
Right.
I mean, obviously there's still tons of games we don't have, but it comes down to the cost of what's worth, but also what are the things we don't have that we want, and how much room do we have exactly.
Yeah. And my basement's full. I have to remove my movies and records and stuff to have more room for games if I'm going to continue any mass pace to increase the size of this collection. And I'd like to have a pinball machine one day, so I'm going to have to even find more room to move other things. And it's we bought a house specifically with a basement that I could fill this crap in. Now the basement's full, so what do I do now? Do I turn it into an actual library with bookshelves in the middle of the floor, or what? I mean, one of the things is I can display everything currently. I don't want to put anything in storage, but the wall is approaching fast.
I've got a thing that that Becky and I do, but it's really kind of me pushing it, that if we can't have it out on display, if it's just like packed in a box somewhere, we don't need to have it. If we can't make room for it where it's accessible, there's no reason for us to keep it. The only exception I make to that are like special edition boxes and stuff like that. Some of those, like I'll pack those away, but I'll pull the game out and I'll put the game on the shelf so we can get the game out and play it. And like the extra controllers, I keep the controllers in a separate room because there's no reason for controllers to be on display. They can just stay in tubs or whatever. But as far as like games themselves, because we've talked about before, like trying to get like filing cabinet kind of systems that we can store like all the Genesis games in and some of that. I think IKEA has a couple I was looking at. They're almost cassette tape sized. But it's like, if we're gonna do that, I mean, at what point is it just too much?
I'm finding with a lot of the loose games that I have, I'm wanting to get them to that point too, where I don't just want to have, a spindle of loose Dreamcast games, or like with what I found recently. I found a deal on a Saturn that had a CD binder worth of Saturn games in it, and I didn't want to leave it just as a binder.
As a rescue job. Did you already have a Saturn?
I did. I do have a Saturn, so I picked up on it because it was a good deal, and it had 30 Saturn games in a CD binder. So, my rescue project on that was I just wanted to get it to a point where it was presentable. I had manuals, but they could be stored away. I just wanted the disc to be in a half-decent case and have a color printout of the cover art. So, a couple trips to Micro Center, bought some CD cases, printed them out on a color laser printer using the cover project, which is wonderful, wonderful site, especially for those old systems.
Especially when they give you European covers and shit.
Yes. Well,
I love the cover project. We took
when you're getting a case for battle stations for Sega Saturn, you can't exactly be too picky.
their GameStop recently got rid of like having boxes for all their DS games. So whenever like used DS games come in, they just like pitch the boxes, and so we were able to go to a couple GameStops and talk them into setting them aside, letting us come and corral them, and we ended up putting all the GBA boxes, packing those away, and putting them all in the DS cases so we could have them like nice and slim and accessible and pretty. And yeah, the cover project had like all of the labels pretty much like already done, and looked professional looking and everything.
Did I tell you how I got my extra DS cases?
No, how?
Micro Center was closing out 15 copies of Tony Hawk Motion for the DS for 95 cents each.
Wow.
So I now have at home a Ziploc bag with 15 cartridges of Tony Hawk Motion and the little gyroscope cartridge that came with it that goes in the GBA port. And I have cases for a lot of my Game Boy Advance and a few used DS games that I had. They now are on the shelf and look good.
It looks nice. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Anybody want a Tony Hawk Motion who listens to
We'll
this
give away his
podcast,
prizes.
We'll sign him.
please contact Chris at awesomepodcast.com and we'll mail them to you.
But like collecting, one of the things that takes up so much space in my collection are game like system boxes, console boxes. So I know a lot of people love them, and deservedly so. But I'm going to probably sell them in Corks in a couple months, just so I have some bookshelf space to put other stuff that's more important. So there's another reason to come visit us at Corks. Corks is going to be kind of our home show. I mean, we're planning on going to CGE in Vegas, but I don't think we're going to have a table. But Corks is in town. We can take stuff there. We can have tournaments. We can have a whole episode with our full gear set up. And that's the thing. I think going to these conventions is kind of like the best highlights of what we do now. Like going to Papa twice a year, going to CGE this year, going to Portland last year. We're going to hit Philly one of these years. We might even do Screw Attack Convention if they're still doing that one of these 2 years. That's kind of low on the list. Texas is a long way from here. But and we went to Midwestern Gaming Classic a few years ago. That was great. CCAG in Cleveland was good. So
MagFest.
Yeah, MagFest for you
MagFest.
guys. I mean, Cincy Classic was the first one we went to about 10, 15 years ago.
That was so
That was great.
Loved it.
And Jesse's been talking about bringing it back, and I hope he does. And we would definitely help out if they did that.
If anybody's going to be the guy to do it, I think it's going to be him. And unconfirmed, I think he's talked to
They can have it in the mall. They got plenty of
Bill
space.
Augustine and the guys who put that together. And I think they're cool with him running with it. So I think
he would
it
do it
could happen.
justice.
Yes, he would. And that's half the battle right there.
But I mean, do you guys find yourself at I'm not really a collector anymore? Because I mean, the one thing is I'm not a gamer anymore. I don't just play video games. I especially don't play modern games because I don't give a flying fuck about stories 9 times out of 10. And I don't do Xbox Live because I suck at first-person shooters, and I suck at modern sports simulations.
I kind of feel like I'm in an interesting spot with this because in my bachelor life, I collected games like crazy. I probably had, I would estimate, about 1,000 games at my high point. You know, still have tubs of penny guides from GameStop and all kinds of completely random stuff. Some of it which is in my garage, and when you talk about things in a garage, I have seen some of the bad side of that because some of it does not look as good as it used to. And with, you know, having a wife, having a family, having kids, a lot of it got sold. When I walk into Darren's store, I'll look at stuff that he gets in that he's selling for $100, which is low.
Yeah.
Which is why I love movies. And I'll say, God, I wish I still had that. Because I remember selling it, and I got $40, and it was a great deal at the time. And I still, made some money. So now, I'm back doing a little bit of acquiring, just trying to do it smartly. so that I have a good game collection, but I don't have the desire to spend to buy the rare stuff. You know, I don't need the $100, $200 games. I feel like, you know, I can do perfectly fine, you know, going in and buying, you know, an NES game every now and then for $5-6 that's really good. Or,
I'm missing.
Yeah.
For the Sega Saturn, the only game I'm missing from a complete collection is Daytona USA NetLink Edition. The last one went on eBay for $700.
Oh God.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So I'm probably just going to burn myself a copy. And although what I might do is I might burn 2 copies and get a phone simulator and actually play it online, quote unquote, with 2 systems.
Nice.
I have an extra modded Saturn if you want.
Set up an asterisk
We can
server.
make this.
Yeah, you just get a phone line simulator. Don't even have to have a server. It's just a direct dial between the 2.
Can you get modems like that to work over asterisk for anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can, as long as you have a VoIP card. I mean, it's still like direct. I mean, what you would do is you would just have it direct dial an extension rather than calling an outside number.
True.
So you just set them up as like internal extensions. Actually, I have a VoIP card now that I'm saying this. I don't know how many ports it has though.
You're making me remember my horrible Phantasy Star Online story.
Oh, PSO. I've been meaning to go on those independent servers forever.
Me
I should
too.
do that. I have the GameCube broadband modem. I might as well
Yeah.
do it.
I just have stories about accidentally deleting friends' level 80 characters when I tried to convert their Dreamcast save from working on a Dreamcast modem to a broadband adapter because you could hack it in a day. Oh, that was not a good night.
Oh, hey,
Months and months of work, and I just blew it up right off his feet.
officer. Right at the end of a curve in a not good spot.
Things we do for technology. But I feel like I'm at that midpoint now where, you know, I can't spend a ton. I have a wife and kids, but I still actively look and want to have a decent collection. Something where I can have friends over and play if I want to. And have a collection of the best of the best of each system. Doesn't have to be complete. Doesn't even have to be, you know, huge. If I get to a point where I have a couple hundred NES games, I know there were, 700 of them that came out in America. If I get to a couple hundred, I'm probably not going to be feeding for the other 500. I'll be fine.
You know, maybe it's the cheapness in me, but the most fun thing I'm collecting now, I find, are shitty PlayStation games. Like, the shittier the better.
It's a good time.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, like
all the terrible pinball games. I'm trying to complete my
Big Great
Austin
USA,
Towers
baby.
Pinball. Why didn't you pick that one up yet?
I think it did.
But I think one of the YouTube series that I kind of think about doing was like a shitty PlayStation game series. It's just something about those first generation PlayStation graphics, and I know we did our whole Awkward Adolescence and Gaming chapter, which we still haven't released yet.
My
But
fault.
it'll be. I don't know if it's going to come out before or after this episode.
I've heard more than one person say that now's a really good time to get like PlayStation 2 games.
Yeah, but
Because-
even those look modern. I mean,
They do.
Becky was bitching at me when I lumped in the PlayStation 2 into the modern age games for the Hexacathlon 64. But they look the same as a PS4 game. It's just better resolution.
Yeah, they
I
do.
mean, they all look like the 3D marionettes. You know, it's all. But yeah, it's to me it's the same.
It's the old argument, and you guys would be a perfect two people to ask this too. You know, how far back in time do you have to go for something to, in your mind, be considered retro? However you define that word.
Well, it's a classic question. Retro Gaming Roundup has their silly arguments about that thing, but I mean, it's whatever is nostalgic and people are buying because of nostalgia, which I guess right now is N64 and even GameCube now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've always considered retro 2 generations back.
but there are things like Xbox One, which aren't really retro. People aren't really getting into Xbox One. Or, not Xbox One, you know what I mean.
Original Xbox.
Yes.
Yeah, because right now that would be 2 generations back.
But that's
But, I mean,
that's definitely not retro
But
because
the Xbox is a special case because really, ultimately, a lot lot of the original Xbox games, even like the big popular ones, are available on the PC. So people are just buying the PC counterparts of it. But you're not seeing the collecting aspect of it too much. Or if you are, like, yeah, I'm not.
It's a hell of a time to collect them. I'll tell you that. They're dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah, they are definitely.
But I don't see many people collecting PS2 games either.
It depends on what the PS2 games are.
Maybe subcategories, but not
Yeah.
not the system as a whole.
I've got maybe 50 of them. I've got, some kind of quirky little offsets of games that I like a couple of MLB Power Pro games.
Oh, I love those so much.
Oh, so good. I enjoy the horse racing games. So I have the G1 Jockeys, the Gallop Racer games.
I know I collected all the poker games on PS2.
Yeah, they were a bunch.
That was the poker boom. So I have all the World Series, the poker,
World Championship
stacked
poker.
World Championship poker. It was stupid ridiculous. Oh, poker boom.
So what do you guys consider retro then?
I go about
For me
2.5.
personally,
You go ahead.
For me personally, it's up to the end of the 16-bit generation, up to the Silver Age, as I call it. Your golden age was your Atari television era. Your Silver Age was NES, 8-bit, and then 16-bit eras, and that's the end of retro for me personally. Now, if you have a broad-based definition, people were getting into GoldenEye and PlayStation 1 games and whatever else, but
So what do you consider those generations then if they're not retro?
I call them Dark Ages. I was watching an episode of GameSack this morning. They were talking about how great 1995 was. Like, I fucking dropped out of gaming in 1995 because the Super NES and Genesis were $99 a piece, and out comes the Sega Saturn at $400, and I'm in college.
Yeah.
Fuck no.
Also,
The PlayStation 1 comes out for $299, which is still fucking expensive compared to $99. So I said, fuck no. It took a couple price drops in Final Fantasy VII 2 years later to convince me to buy a PlayStation 1. At that point, I think it was $150.
I bought a launch PlayStation 1.
Yeah, you were in high school still,
I
though.
bought it for... No, actually, no, not really. I'd already dropped out by then.
But you weren't...
It was the first system.
You were living
that I
at home. You
bought.
weren't a poor college student.
Right. Oh, no.
You had a job, too.
I was living at home and working full time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so
you had money.
I had money. And then PS1 was the first system I saved up for and bought for myself.
Yeah, there was a kid down the hall who was like a Japanophile, back when Japanophiles were not cool, 1996 or so.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. and yeah, he sold Amway, so he had lots of money from selling his Amway. So he had a PlayStation, and he was playing Jumping Flash. This is the first PlayStation 1 game I'd ever seen, and it was all 3D and 3D EE. And I couldn't say I was that impressed. And then I went, it was like, this is $300. I mean, it's new, but it was the first time I wasn't blown away. Like when the cool thing back in the old days was video games, like especially Japanese systems, would come out in Japan first, and they would be over there for a good year before we got them in America. So like your really cool hip into video game stores would have a Super Famicom or a Mega Drive on display a good year before we got over here, so you could get really hyped. It's like, oh my god, I saw Super Mario World for the first time.
Or even a rental. I mean, there were a lot of places that did rentals on Japanese systems around here.
Video Games Express in Columbus in particular. That's where I saw Super Famicom the first time. And then they also rented Mega Drive games before we got over here. So I played Bare Knuckle before Streets of Rage came out.
Nice.
And all they did was shave the edges off the cartridges, off the Mega Drive cartridges, so they fit American systems. Pretty hilarious. So somebody out there, a collector in Columbus, likely has some of those rental copies with the side shaved off. Probably not too terribly valuable, but I would love one of those just to have one.
I would too.
If anybody has one, please sell it to me. But anywho, back in 95, 96, none of that shit was very impressive. I mean, my roommates in college did get an N64 when it came out, and they played a lot of Mario Kart. But Mario Kart and WWF Warzone, the first one, which is awful.
God.
That was a popular one in the house, at least, but it was weird. It wasn't. I didn't fall in love with it. I was just like, this is me. And we're going back to awkward adolescence and gaming.
You gotta have a master's degree in butt knowledge to play that game.
I had a PlayStation and a few games for
Tad
it,
laugh, you know you want to.
but it took the Dreamcast to really get me back in full swing.
Same here.
We played a lot of N64 back in the day, though.
You had way more than I did, though. I just had one just to have one. I got a cheap one near its end.
You used to come over. We used to play
Lots of Mario Golf,
Mario Party, WCW, NWO
The
World
Oxy
Tour.
games.
What else did we play a lot of?
that weird ass Konami puzzle game.
I love that Konami puzzle game so much.
What the fuck is that thing called?
I don't even know. So good. I mean, there was a lot of those we played, but because we had the guys who worked with the Micro Center. They used to always come over after work, and we just pile over to the house and play 4-player N64 games all night.
But that's also when I got into classic collecting. That's when Bert got the 10,000 NES games, and I finally got my Intellivision. That was like the first foray in going back into the classic stuff.
So we got our Nomads for $20 a piece.
And I found an Atari 5200 at a flea market for $20. That was my first Atari system. Actually, was a 5200. I'm surprised I stuck it through with that. But I mean, my start button barely worked. But I discovered Kaboom, and I was hooked on Kaboom ever since. It's funny how I never played Atari back. I played a little bit. I knew some people who had it, but I had a television, so. But now I'm a huge Atari fan, and I never had one back in the day, so go figure.
So what is retro for me?
Oh yeah, we were asking that question.
Tad, you said it was 2 generations. I almost feel like it has to go a little further back, like 2.5 to 3.
Okay.
Like the later end PlayStation stuff, the N64 stuff. It's hard for me to rationalize and say, like WWF No Mercy or Final Fantasy IX. The last stuff that came out. It doesn't feel retro, but like the very early stuff, Super Mario 64 could feel retro to me, or the long box PlayStation games, those very first ones, the Battle Area 2 Shin-Bins, maybe the original Resident Evil. So
Cyber Sled.
I think as this generation goes on, maybe by the end of it, all of the PlayStation games will feel more retro to me. It gets that true 3-generation look back then. But that's about the point. About 2.5 generations. So.
But you're definitely not in it for the collecting anymore. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this show was. Oh, hey, cop.
He's going somewhere.
Everywhere tonight.
Yes,
Yeah, they are. Sunday night, that's all those people come back from Pinburg. Crazy Pinburgers.
Crazy Kentucky fans driving home.
Yeah, from West Virginia.
Hey, why not?
But, honestly, I'm getting more enjoyment doing the podcast. I'm getting more enjoyment doing the next to the Catholics at my house. I don't even post on forums that much anymore because it's kind of old hat to me. There's really not. I don't even get that stimulated talking to other people about it. I like talking about the deep stuff like we're sort of getting into.
Yeah.
It's funny. I literally 3 days ago, this kind of hit home for me because I invited Darren from Warpzone over. I didn't think he did. And we had a couple other friends over, and Darren asked, he's like, "Hey, so of all the stuff you have, what's the rarest game you have?" And I didn't know. And I still I'm looking around, I'm like, what's the rarest thing I've got in here? And there's a point where I'm like, I'm not really collecting anymore. I still have everything. I have the collection, but I don't consider myself a collector. So as a collector, I know, this is my most expensive game, or this is my hardest to find game, or whatever. I grab random things. I'm like, well, this seems kind of hard to find, but this is kind of rare. Or, this has a high number on Atari Age or whatnot. And I went back to things that, I knew from 10 years ago were rare. I my Mr. News Castle. I'm like, all right, that was a rarity 7 in Atari Age.
You don't have a Holy Grail in your collection, basically.
Not really. I mean,
I don't have a single one. Mine are my whole collections. all the Virtual Boy games, all the 32X games, all the Dreamcast, all the Saturn.
My holy grails are like personal things. They're not like
Right.
Yeah.
big special things.
Your Pac-Man 2600, you played with your dad.
Yeah, like those. Like my original Atari games with like my name written on the back of them. Jeremy got me that 33 of the Space Channel 5 Mexican Flyer opening. I love that. That's like one of my favorite things. Tony signed the Donkey Kong Jr. and I've got that framed in the wall. Like my holy grails are they're not like expensive games. I mean, I've got some rare stuff. I mean, I think at the end of the night, I kind of, after like I noodled around it for a little bit, decided on the Pocket Reversi, which is like a Rarity 9 digit
That's
press.
bullshit. I've seen it everywhere.
Well, there's different model numbers on it.
Is it the rare one? Because I was thinking of like maybe the box one was rare and the loose one was easy. Who gives a shit?
Which system is this for?
We don't want to sound like
Neo
our
Geo
generation.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone loves our generation of digit press.
I know, but I don't want to sound like our generation podcast. Talking for 3 hours about super rare games.
Gotcha.
It's trying to.
I can understand where you're coming from, because the only game I can think of that I ever had, even when I had the big collection, that felt like it was a holy grail was I had a copy of Cybervirus, which was a homebrew Atari Lynx game that I bought at the very first Cincy Classic. And because 8 was my favorite number, they only made 25 of them. They were numbered. And I got number 8 because it was my favorite number.
Nice.
And when I needed some money, a married life, I did end up selling it. I got about $300 for it. I bet now it would probably be worth more than that. It's actually a big Neo Geo collector that bought it because their address was neogeo.com.
Actually, I think my rarest game is Grey Lancer, which I unwittingly got it cheap because I went to a game store who had it, and I just said, "Oh, a Japanese." This is 2004, maybe a little later than that, but it's been a long time. I didn't realize it was expensive. I thought you got most places when they have Japanese Dreamcast games, especially back then, or not Dreamcast, Genesis games, Mega Drive games.
Yeah.
They just got rid of them because there was no market for it. Like, nobody collected Sega back then. Now some people do, but the people that do, like, just have their particulars that they're looking for, as evidenced by Tad's Copy Musha for $5. But I basically said, oh, that's a Japanese Mega Drive. That's a Mega Drive game. Nobody's going to buy that stuff. Just sell it to me cheap. Just get rid of it. You're just going to sit on it forever. So I ended up getting it it was less than $10. And now I realize that I kind of ripped them off. Kind of feel bad about it, but not super bad about it.
It wasn't intentional. You didn't know how much.
I didn't know how much. It wasn't intentional. I honestly thought it was just a inexpensive. I didn't even realize it was exclusive or anything like that until years later.
It's a Japanese shmup. No one can play this. I'm taking off your hands. I can.
Yeah. That was my interest in it. I didn't know.
Because it's like at Vaccine Vids over in Dayton. They have that one.
By the way, yes, he said vacuum cleaners and video games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun store if you're going through Dayton.
Yeah, it's a great store. But they had that. There was a Japanese Dreamcast game. It was
all kanji and
Sega's version of the Super Robot Tyson series. It was the same series. It was a different one. It was like still a lot of older mechs.
Wait, isn't that more Super Robot Tyson? Right.
But they had it. It was like $55. It's kanji heavy. It's a strategy RPG. It's really unplayable. And I tried several times to get them to sell it to me for like $20. Wouldn't have it. And it sat there for at least 5 years that I watched it. Got completely sun faded because it never like moved from its spot where it was. And it was there the last time I was there. Still.
Wow.
So
yeah,
I mean,
crap.
so it's not it's not unfair to say that there's Japanese games and you're probably not going to be able to sell this because not a lot of people care about Japanese games.
And actually, I mean, that Grey Lantern, because it's expensive, I'm probably going to end up selling that for practical purposes.
Yeah. There were certainly games when I sold them that I looked at them and said, I'm not going to play this soon. It's too expensive to keep.
Yeah. I don't. If I found an NWC, for instance, or a stadium event, you're goddamn right I would sell it.
I still don't know what to do with our Steel Bomberman, our Steel Saturn Bomberman.
open it or sell it. You already have a regular copy, right?
You have an open one?
Yeah,
Sell
we have.
You have an open? Sell it. Fuck it, sell it, dude. You want a pinball machine or
but I don't
something.
know how much to sell that thing for.
But that's why they have an auction site so people can actually put a real price on it.
Yeah, but I don't want to take
Put on Game Gavel. I could put up for free.
You know, if you put that up though and advertised it, put something on Reddit or went to digital press and noted, hey, I got a sealed Saturn Bomberman. Word will get out to the people that need to get out.
I could put on Game Gavel for free.
There's also like a link in the side. I got ripped off on Game Gavel once.
By who?
Some dude who was selling the boards. I won an auction on it, and then he like retracted the auction right after it. I guess I didn't really get ripped off. I didn't pay him anything,
But that's him. That's not Game Gavel.
I know, but
eBay's worse.
Yeah, and Amazon too. Amazon's even pretty bad now as well. We almost got ripped off a couple times on Amazon as sellers trying to sell some stuff.
I stopped selling stuff on Amazon because the process got too much to be a pain in the butt. It wasn't worth it anymore. And they love them some commission.
Oh yeah.
But here's the other subject I kind of want to bring up.
Yeah.
About the Hexadecathlon and stuff. I love, for some reason, I must be the math nerd in me who never really got deeply into math in college, but like in high school, I liked running NCAA pools because I love the math in it. I love the 1 point for the first round, 2 points for the second round. I had this ridiculously complex bracket that I ran. You didn't fill out one bracket, you filled out one for the whole tournament, then you filled out a secondary bracket for the Sweet 16, and then a tertiary bracket for the Final Four.
That's
so
awesome.
it ended up being a total of 400 points. Like you could get.
That's awesome.
It was fucking ridiculous. So this ridiculously complex bracket in high school.
The
and
math
I love
here
the math just turned on my brain or something.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then Hexadecathlon. One of the reasons I decided to run it was, it was to share my collection and play video games and stuff. But the reason I came up with the scoring system was because I loved Starcade back in the day. You guys familiar with Starcade?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how you scored Starcade was you'd play a game, and then you would get that game's score. And you'd play a second game, and then that score would be added to your first score. And then your total would be who won or not. But I thought that was bullshit even when I was in grade school, because some games have a faster rate of scoring than others. Like if you pick Pac-Man, in 30 seconds you're only going to get 5,000 points or so if you're great. Like you could clear a board maybe in 30 seconds and eat all the ghosts, but that'd be about it. Versus something like, I can't think of a really fast scoring game, but
Zookeeper, since everybody picked a Zookeeper.
Zookeeper,
Yes.
but the rate of scoring was different, and I thought that was really bullshit. That one person could be good at one game, and then any other game they could lose, but then they would still win the overall competition. So I came up with independently, which other people have done too, but just when I did Hexadecathlon, I came up with the idea to score proportionally. So first place would be 100%, and everybody else would score a percentage of the high score. So that just gave me my math boner for however many years since then. And I revised it for every little thing. We did the Hexadecathlon 64, which I revised slightly with the replays, and we're doing a small tournament at Chris's that we're called a Pin Jammers, where it's pinball and windjammers. And I got a scoring set up for that. I just love coming up with these tournament ideas. It's the statistical nerd in me. That's what it is. I should get into Saber instead, but this is what I do instead.
You should.
We're working on that.
Yeah. But, here, what we're really working on...
Social gaming.
That's right. And I see the success of the Pinball League that you guys are involved with around town. And I want to do something similar with video games. We've got enough venues around the city.
You should make trading cards for us with all of our stats. And all of our old
absolutely.
If it got really huge, absolutely. But one step at a time. I want to run a classic gaming league. I think that something like that could take off, especially in Columbus, that has so many places and people interested in classic. This is really a hotbed. I've been to other cities, and it doesn't. you don't see that many, like Cincinnati's close to Columbus, but Columbus has less people and more gaming stores. You know, Portland's pretty big, but they're kind of isolated. I mean, you have Portland and Seattle, and that's it around that whole area, around that whole part of the country, even. Like Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, then nothing. Whereas here, we're kind of in the middle of the Midwest, where there's a new city every 2 hours in every direction it can go.
Feels like the whole 71 corridor is pretty good.
The 71 corridor is really good. You can go to be to Detroit in a few hours, and Toledo, and Kentucky, and Chicago's only 6 hours away. And I mean, Indianapolis is 4 hours away. There's for whatever reason, I don't know exactly why, but another example. How many Odyssey 2s have you guys ever seen outside of Columbus?
Any what?
Outside of Columbus. Odyssey 2 anything. I never even heard of it until I got up here. And I've seen them.
I haven't.
I've seen them everywhere. I got a complete Odyssey 2 collection almost exclusively from local buying. Even Power Lords came into play it when I was working there. I mean, that's crazy. I don't know if Magnavox had a sub office here or something.
Or if you were like the test market or something.
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the city that there's a shit ton of stores around here, and there's like the 16-bit bar is extremely successful downtown. Like that would be a good place to have a competition. But what I want to do is instead of just people going around town buying all this stuff and going to swap meets, I want to start having game competitions and get-togethers and stuff. I mean, I know Darren does a few things at his store, little, small. Oh, let's just have a score competition on an obscure TurboGrafx game or something.
Yeah.
But I think that we could actually have a nice little league around town and have people get to know each other a little better and be competitive and have fun with these things. Hexadecathlon has been super successful. I mean, I met Steve because he worked with my wife, and now he's one of my best friends just from freaking video games. I'm Tatton, he's my best friend for playing video games. And we met Scott at a Korgs, and he's one of our great friends now. I mean,
and I got to reconnect with Tatton through Hexadecathlon and get to meet you.
It's
and actually, we met Scott back at Cincy Classic.
Did we?
Yeah, I have a picture of him at his table selling Neo Geo games. It's like Digipress guide.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't remember
that.
That
was the 99 Cincy Classic. I was going through pictures. I'm like, hey, look, it's a picture of Scott.
They're going to blackmail me for how much different I look then than I do now. That's worth some money.
It's in my blackmail file.
Nice.
Duly noted.
But you talk about the social game aspect of it. I can look back at when we did the Hexadecathlon. That entire weekend, I took a couple extra days off because I wanted to watch the basketball tournament. I was dog sick. My stomach was kicking my butt that entire weekend, but I got myself feeling well enough to come over and play, and thankfully Troy.
Don't even blame your disease on losing, pal.
Nope.
I'm still number one.
Oh no, you'd have kicked my ass left and right no matter what.
Seriously, I know I'm being a dick, but if I did not curate the games myself, I would never win these things.
Damn it, you should though. You never competed. You should enjoy every bit of it.
I know.
You competed in the first one.
I sort of competed in the first one. I played everything once, and then I competed in the multiplayer tournaments, and then the second one did the same thing. But I never did any of the replays, so I never really competed like I did this last time. I was never in it like everybody else was. I was kind of a pace car. I think that's kind of how I thought of myself.
But the point being is, I got so much enjoyment out of that social aspect of the gaming.
Yeah.
That it gave me adrenaline. It gave me a push to go. You know, if I'm sitting at home and playing a retro game at home and just goofing around with it, even if I'm trying to get a high score, I'm not that good at it. But when I'm around other people and that competitive nature comes out, I want to win. I enjoy that tremendously. The people you meet, the thrill of competition. Those are all wonderful things. It has helped me increase my enjoyment of video games tenfold, especially the last few years. Absolutely tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, talked about this like a little bit on the way out, but like, you know, all of the important relationships in my life have been pretty much like made or fostered.
You met your
through
wife
video
through a
games.
goddamn video game store.
Yeah.
So did I.
Did you really? You went to another video game store?
Through a friend of a friend, yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
If it wasn't for me being a game junkie on a Sunday night, I would have never met Danielle.
That's awesome.
Because a friend of hers came down with her husband. Her name was Susan. Nice woman. Still a very good friend of ours. And she just, for some reason, up and decided, you need to meet my friend Danielle. You two would really get along. I was just like, okay.
The less romantic version is I got late because I was an IGN moderator. Sorry. Go on.
Being romantic, good for you. Hey, it takes. But, you know, so we swapped pictures and started talking on the phone, and then about a month later...
Started swapping other things.
No comment. Living in sin. And met on New Year's Day in person, and the rest has been history, and that's how I ended up in Columbus.
That's awesome.
So, Game Junkie is directly responsible for me being a married man with kids.
Because, I mean,
I love the game of junkie.
like, collecting at Crazy Birds, I mean, that's what put Chris and I together.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, growing up, my best friend growing up was Jeremy. And Jeremy and I mean, you know, we went to different schools, so we didn't go to school together. But we connected the most on video games. And we spent, like, all of our childhood just, you know, one of each other's house, like, playing games. And then, the job I have now, I got it because my current job was a customer of my last job. And my last job, I got that job because I did some work for a buddy of mine and like fixed his broken Xbox and some other stuff, and then, you know, he reached out, they had an opening and he knew like what I had, and so he reached out and you know, was like, hey, you should apply for this, whatever. And you know, if it wasn't for that connection through working on his Xbox, like I wouldn't even have the position that I'm in right now. It's
So in a Bass Ackridge way, Steve Ballmer is responsible for your current level of success.
yes. Steve Ballmer is directly responsible for my current level of success.
Partington.
He's like Miami Vice meets live, love, whatever.
And reversing! Free reversing!
Pocket reversing.
Pocket Rarity 9!
So, like, Chris, could you answer that question? Could you answer, like, what's your rarest game in your collection right now?
Well, I think it's Grey Lancer.
Is it?
Yeah?
You know what's crazy? I think mine might be Crusaders of Cinti. I was looking at it online. It sells for, like, $400.
Oh, Jesus. You got that from that asshole. And this is a fantastic story, because we did a trip to Cleveland about 7 years ago. Was I with Linda at that point?
I think so. I think that was the first weekend that we, like, went on a trip, like, the three of us together.
Linda wasn't with it. It was just you and me.
Was it you? Okay, never mind then.
Because we went out east, and then we went up 77 instead of going up 71 to Cleveland. We hit all of the did we hit all the trading zones, or what?
I don't remember.
Well, we went.
I know we ended on Video Game Connection because I wish we'd gotten there first. Because I'd blown all my money by the time we got there.
We went to this one store either near Youngstown or Akron or one of those Cleveland satellite cities, and it was in a house. It was a commercial space in a house. You know, it's like a country area, no real zoning. And this guy had a lot of good stuff, and his prices were. Well, I picked up a couple of Weko sticks for 5,200 for like $10, which is pretty good at the time. But what's weird is he had like a Jaguar and a Jaguar CD for $250, or
I think it was $299.
Yeah, it was
because he had a.
Which at the time was kind of ridiculous. Now it's pretty fair, but then it was ridiculous.
He had a Genesis and a Sega CD. When we had gotten ours for like $20 to $30 a piece,
yeah,
he was selling those for the combo was $250.
Which nowadays is about what people sell it for. But 7 years ago, that he was a forefather in ridiculous pricing for consoles. But here you find this weird ass Atlas game for the Genesis, which you never even heard of before. for $25, and you're like, oh, it's Atlas. Maybe I'll just go ahead and pick it up.
Yeah, I'm like, I like RPGs, and I don't have an RPG for the Genesis that's like a Final Fantasy style, so I'll get this for $35.
Yeah, it's Crusaders Ascensi.
Now it's the rarest.
Now it's not the rarest. It's the most in demand because RPG fans are fucking crazy. But yeah, oh god. Well, you want to talk? Well, collecting asshole stories, sort of. But good old Game Crazy. Remember them? They were great at first because they had so much great stock, and then as soon as the stock was gone, because their prices were so crazy, nobody would trade their stuff into them because they didn't give you a tick for it. But Mr. Tatton found a copy of a game called Tetris on NES and asked him how much it was, and they looked up Tetris and they saw it was $7, except that Tatton's was a Tengen Tetris. But they didn't know the difference, and therefore, go corporate policy.
Their system only had one Tetris. They didn't differentiate between the two.
Yep.
That's their problem, not yours.
I miss Game Crazy so much.
No, they got shitty at the end.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they did. I know you liked the employee there at the one you went to, but...
like my whole store was great, and then the other store was good. But, like, I remember... And the one thing that I love is that, like, that store... that, like, everyone knew me, and like, that I had, every time, like, the VP would come around, like, they'd let me know, because I happened to just, like, incidentally be in there when he was in once, and he's like, so, do you come here a lot? And I was, like, really just talking up the place. I had no idea who he was, and the guys by the counter, like, they were all, like I could tell something was weird. I'm like, what's going on? And they told me afterwards that it was because he was the senior VP of all of Game Crazy, and so I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And I guess like he was really excited that I was as happy with them as I was.
You kept that store in business for an extra year, personally.
You made sure they were the last Game Crazy
because you bought all your new stuff through them.
All of my new stuff went through them. Most of my used stuff went through them. Pretty much all my used stuff. Cause I don't know what it was, but I didn't like a lot of the stores that were around. Like when Bird started drying up, I didn't like the other ones that were around. So
well, Bird moved to Grove City. That's why we don't go to him as much anymore.
Well, I mean, he had like 9 stores at one point. Like, it's like you go to stores everywhere, and then when they started closing like one by one, it was like I don't want to drive all the way across.
He's great still. I like him a lot. And every time I've gone in there, he still had a few things I've been looking for, but. Since Grove City is just clear on the side of town. It's an hour round trip at least if the traffic's good.
When Game Crazy is like on the way to work,
right?
Yeah,
it's that easy. But no, I remember there was a guy in town who used to apparently he was like he was just a real jerk to them all, and he would always like.
Hey, you!
Set up, like, all their accounts.
You look like a real jerk! Well, he is a corporate executive. Oh, wait. Well, I am a corporate executive.
Manager? Oh, wait.
He keeps people from having fun as a job! Well, Buffy, and, never mind. 5200, full position commercial. Go watch it.
So anyway, this guy was a real jerk. And he used to always, like, make them, like, print up all their accounts, whatever, and he would always, like, just press the hell out of them if there was something that showed up in the account so that he wanted to buy or whatever. Long and short of it was, he resold all of it. Like, he was just going around, he's buying stuff cheap and, like, reselling on eBay. And, when Game Crazy stopped selling, like, the retro back then stuff, which is, like, all of their cartridge-based stuff, they sold everything for pretty much, like, $5 a piece for the most part.
Yep, I remember that.
And so, like, when this guy was doing his rounds, like, the other stores would call around to, like, warn the other ones, and so they would go through and they would pull, like, all the things that they knew were, like, the rarest things, and they would call me and they'd be like, hey, you need to come, like, as soon as you can, because we have a stack of stuff for you, it's cheap. I'm like, okay.
Nice.
And you had informants.
And so what happened was, because, 2 reasons. One, because I was always really nice to them. And I would take them, like, they were open 365 days a year. So, like, Christmas Day, they would be open and have to, like, work in their store. So I'd go and visit them on Christmas Day, and I'd take them donuts, and like, I'd take Andy, like, a pack of cigarettes or whatever, and all that. So, like, the,
coercion through tobacco.
they couldn't go. There was like one person working there. You can't go take a break. You can't take a lunch, whatever. You know, it's like you couldn't go and get some yourself. So you know. But anyway, so they.
Well, you have to hate Game Crazy as a concept, though.
No, it was good.
But seeing open 365 days a year is bullshit.
Yeah.
Even GameStop's closed on Christmas Day.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that part. I mean, it was nice to go and hang out with them on Christmas Day when I was bored not doing anything, but, you know.
Obviously, Blockbuster thought it was a good idea. Thus, the inception of Game Rush.
Oh, God, Game Rush. But anyway, they would pull those games together for me, and then, like, he'd come in, and they'd, you know, always have, like, you know, some story about why they couldn't sell them to him, and then they would sell them to me, and I'd get a bunch of, like, super rare stuff for really cheap, and the one time he was actually in there when I was in there, and he was like yelling at the manager because he wouldn't sell him like the stack of games that they had, and they were like, no, they're like, hey, actually there he is right now, and I walked up and they're like, were you able to figure out what was wrong with your credit card? I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I just had to give him a call to get it cleared. I don't know why they had a block on it. Like I don't know. I've been buying a lot of games recently, so maybe it was that or whatever.
That's great.
So, like, you know, they told me, like, my card didn't go through, so I had to, like, hold it for me until... So I ended up... I got, like, a bunch of really cool stuff during all that, and I really, like, appreciate that.
Okay, crazy. But I want to do the league. I want to do it around the city. I want to meet even more cool people, and I'm not looking to become an internet star or make money off the podcast, but it would be nice to have the podcast as a conduit to go to more conventions. If I made a little extra money to help pay for a trip to CGE, that would be awesome. That would be my goal with this whole thing, you know?
Basically, the gaming would cover itself.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Because, you know, I'm getting older. I can't... It's about the experiences. It's not about the physical product anymore as much. Now it's about turning this stuff into things. I mean, I can't wait to go to CGE and meet Howard Scott Warshaw finally.
Oh my God, I know.
Look at how I'm trying to get out to Vegas. I'm trying to do it on the grounds of it being a business trip because my company's data center just so happens to be in Las Vegas.
I want to be on other people's podcasts. I'm going to be on Intellivisionaries in a couple of weeks.
Which is awesome.
I like talking to people. What's weird is because I don't like talking to people in general. Well, here's the other thing. I'm so jaded now that I was at VGMX, which is a local store close to me. The owner's a good guy, but he's not there very often. But the clientele there tend to not be retro gaming minded. They have retro games there, but it's more of a music store, more of a modern game store. Not the owner's fault. That's just how the cards fall. So there's this guy in there, and he's like, "Oh man, is that the original Pong, man? How old is that thing?" And the guy behind the counter, nice enough guy, I'm not gonna fault him. He's younger than me. He's like, "Oh, I think that's like 1980." And then like there's like a TurboGrafx, like, "Oh, the TurboGrafx, I think that came out at the same time as the Atari." Just, you know, real pretty ignorant answers, but frankly, I mean, Jesus Christ, he works at a game store for whatever he works there for. It's not his job to know what a fucking TurboGrafx is. I mean, it's not. He's good. He's a good enough guy. I'm not gonna like say he sucks or anything because he doesn't.
He's effort.
He's a young guy, and he knows what he needs to know to make sales. I mean, anybody who knows what a TurboGrafx is isn't going to need a clerk to tell him what it is. So, but 10 years ago, I think I might have jumped in and like started talking about that stuff. But nowadays, I'm just like, I don't care. I didn't say anything about it. I just bought my stuff and left. It's weird. I'm really particular about. I don't like talking to people unless they have like at least some sort of knowledge of what I'm into, and that I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what my point is now. I don't even like making points in my stories. Jokes. I love to be the jokes.
Maybe you want to now have opportunities to learn more about the things you don't know about gaming.
Yeah,
as opposed to trying to feel like you have to educate everybody else because it's a lost cause.
And that kid could have like been interested in the subject too, but it's like it's just too much effort. I don't know. A lot of the stuff for me was self-discovery. that's the other aspect of game collecting, which turned in from a money-making pursuit to learning about the hobby and learning about the history of it. You know, when I collected baseball cards as a kid, I learned a shit ton about baseball by collecting the cards. I learned what all the teams were. I learned, you know, the American League, the National League. I learned the rules of baseball and what all the statistics meant, and all that kind of stuff I learned just from stupid little pieces of cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
So
my love of math today can be derived from all those old cheesy 1987 Topps wood grain baseball cards.
yeah, absolutely. And my video games, from buying all these stupid Ataris and all this other stuff, I've learned so much. And they don't even like present it to you outright because of the internet forums and that other things, and reading books and podcasts. Obviously, I've learned a ton about this stuff, and the whole is pretty much infinitely deep. I can learn stuff all the time from this sort of thing. I mean, I don't know the lick about computer programming, but I've got a good enough idea of how this stuff runs. You know, I can, you know, sort of explain to a person how a 2600 actually draws the image on the screen, and you actually manipulate the beam of the TV beam, of the cathode ray tube beam, whereas, you know, most modern systems don't. You know, it's different. See, I can't even explain this part.
I've got an interesting take on this, and it's because I can truly say one of the things that rejuvenated me into retro gaming was the origins of emulation. Back when it first really, for people really first figured out how to emulate, mid to late 90s, they figured out how to emulate a Nintendo or a Commodore 64.
Right.
You know, I was in school at the time for computer programming, so the idea of being able to do that in code, you know, and understanding how an operating system worked was fascinating to me. I learned so much technical stuff about the systems at that time too. And at the same time, it provided an opportunity for me to download a lot of games that you typically couldn't find in a store, you didn't care to find in a store. And I'd go through, you know, my collection of 500 Nintendo ROMs, and I would open them all up and at least play them for a couple of minutes.
Right.
Just so I could learn what the game was, what it was about, you know, whether I liked it, whether there was a pile of crap. And trust me, there were a few of those.
I wonder what if kids are doing that. I mean, I'm sure there's some kids that do that. And
I don't think they are.
I would love to talk. That kid who came to Korg's last year, God, I would love to talk to him.
Yeah.
Just to see his journey through this stuff, because his parents brought him, and he was so proud that he was playing Warlords and got to the tournament and everything. And we gave him a T-shirt. I hope. I mean, I hope he comes to Korg's again this year. I really want to talk to him for a few minutes and get him on the show and just kind of see what a kid who's growing up amongst all this shit that we play with now, which I'm sure my parents think all the stuff that I'm into when I was a kid was all shit too.
Yeah.
But we have an upcoming episode on that.
Well, and you know, I burned out on the emulation scene.
Yeah,
in the early aughts, because I used to post on their sites. I knew some of the authors. I knew some of the people who ran the various sites. Some of them were great people. Others were assholes.
Right.
That's just the way any scene goes. But now, when I go back and look at, you know, say go to Reddit, go to the subreddit for emulation, all it is a bunch of kids whining on there saying, my PC can't run Dolphin. Why can't I run a GameCube game on my computer? Why does PCSX2 fail? I want to run Kingdom Hearts. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to kill you all.
And they just want to play shit for free.
Yeah, they just want to play this shit free. They don't.
Which there was enough of that back then too. But when MAME was out, you couldn't realistically buy arcade machines.
Right. Not in plenty.
There legitimately was a preservation to it.
Absolutely.
Whereas nowadays, what GameCube game is really endangered of falling into the cracks because no company owns the rights to it?
Don't get me wrong. I understand that it's cool to be able to upscale a game like Mario Strikers and play it at 1080p on your computer monitor.
Nothing cool about that.
Well,
no, there is.
To me, it's cool. Technically, it's cool. But I'm a technical person like that. But you're absolutely right. Oh, okay. Now I see what you did.
Yeah.
But realistically, where does it all come from initially? It comes from wanting to play a game for free. You know, most people who are trying to do that aren't doing it because they want to see something technically cool.
Right. My first foray was I wanted to play Final Fantasy V translated. that was my first foray into emulation, and I had a shitty Pentium MMX compact from 1998, and it ran about 85% speed.
Sounds about right.
SNES emulator at the time.
SNES?
I think so.
It was that or SNES 9X. They're still the
I think
top.
one of the two. I mean, I couldn't get it to run very well, and it was in a Final Fantasy game on the SNES was really mood dependent, and if it's not running at full speed with the music and perfectly intact, it's a chore. So I never really did it much. And I think not much longer after that, they actually did come out with the PlayStation 1 version.
And a wonder to the testament how crazy emulation can be.
Yeah.
The most accurate Super Nintendo emulator now requires a 3 gigahertz processor because it takes that many operations to run a 4 megahertz CPU.
How much of that is like shitty, like not
like graphical
just
enhancements? Not much.
How much of it is just bad coding? Like they just don't get. That just seems excessive to me.
It probably is, but if you're trying to be cycle accurate, then I get the need to run extra code to do it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
But
But I mean, a lot of it is just people want to play shit for free, which is
yeah.
ugh.
And technically, there's two aspects to it. You either code something for speed and you hack your way around the issues, or you code it for accuracy and you say, I don't care how fast it runs, I just want it to be accurate.
Right.
There's definitely two trains of thought on it.
I don't keep up with it anymore.
I saw the first PS3 emulator is up and running now.
Oh my god.
You can run Disgaea 2 at 2 frames per second.
The other famous topic on these freaking emulation sites. Is there a 3DS emulator out there? I want to play Pokemon X and Y. Why can't I play my Xbox 360 games on my PC? Thank you for allowing me to vote.
But you know what though? I mean, I totally agree with that stuff because when backwards compatibility goes, there's gonna be a point in time where I'm gonna have hundreds of games for the PS2, the Xbox, whatever. Dreamcast. Honestly, the Dreamcast is the one that I'm the most worried about. Is I'm gonna have hundreds of games for it, and I'm not gonna be able to play because I don't have a working console. And I'm gonna be able to
My
just-
sports unit got fuckity last exit decathlon when I'd turn it on and it would just reset in the middle of shit. I saw a fix for it that maybe the power cable inside gets loose. I might as well crack it open. It's not like I can fuck it up anymore.
I've lost 3 Dreamcasts.
Oh,
Dreamcast is the one system that has been the most, like, I have had the most failures out of. Which is funny because I have like 7 Dreamcast. No, I had 7. I'm down to 4 now.
That one store had them for $10 that one weekend. And you bought. I should have got some.
I like a
too.
stack. I'm like, I gotta take all your Dreamcasts. That was after my first one died. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm never gonna not have a Dreamcast. I'm just gonna buy every Dreamcast I can find.
Find your best Dr. Doofenshmirtz voice and say, I'll take 5.
I'll tell you what, though, my goddamn Atari still works. That was made in 1977. That's still kicking like a motherfucker, and go Atari. But
If it wasn't for those darn 72-pin connectors, every Nintendo would
oh
still
god,
be running it.
Nintendo's the worst cartridge-based system of all time.
But it's because of one bad part in the whole thing.
Well, one bad part in the lockout chip that's so sensitive.
Well, yes, that's the amazing thing is my blue shell Dreamcast. I have dropped that once before when I was playing PSO up on like Kent State's campus when I was dating a girl up there, which did not end well. I was playing, pulled the controller too far, dropped the Dreamcast at about 6 feet, scratched the PSO disc beyond repair. The system was okay. It still is okay to this day. Mine must have been a rock or something. I don't know.
It's so funny, like, as like terrible as they are, my like launch PlayStation and my launch PS2 are both still working just fine. And yet, I've killed 3 Dreamcasts.
The launch PS2 I had, the motor just eventually died.
What's that?
Your launch PS2, that's amazing.
Yeah, still works.
The one I bought wouldn't play the DVD discs, or no, they wouldn't play the CD discs. The DVD discs would play fine, but I picked up a Well, I've got one that has a mod chip in to play imports only, but then it's weird because it won't play PS1 imports.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's all. I got it off Shop Goodwill. If you're really careful, look at Shop Goodwill. Sometimes they'll show the serial number and you can see the J in it. Pick up a Japanese PS2 unwittingly. They don't know they're selling one. But yeah, it's all right.
I think my Launch 360 ran for 4 years. I should call Guinness about that.
Yeah, I've lost 2 360s. Because I had one, red ringed. I went out and I bought another one. Sent the first one in for repair. When I got it back, I gave it to Becky when we were recording. And then they red ringed for her after she moved up here and gave it to her brother.
Good for her. Fucking 360. Let's talk about the fucking 360.
But I mean, like that makes sense. Like I invested in the fact that I want there to be a 360 emulator because when my 360 inevitably red rings again, I want to play Ultimania's Excellent, and I'm not going to be able to because I'm not going to have a fucking system that can do it because they changed the architecture.
The Slimlines didn't red ring, did they?
They had their own version of the red ring, I think.
No, whatever.
They are a lot more
All right, let's get off
reliable,
this
but they
fucking
will
topic.
die. They're 360s. They will die.
The 360 soul may have died, but its soul still is a red ring of death. Soul Calibur 7.
Thank God this ain't a video podcast. You can just see me.
Yeah, I'm really stretching for jokes. It's 10 o'clock, but we left the house at 8:30 this morning. Left Columbus at 8:30, so it's been a pretty long day.
Random topic just to throw out there to you guys. What do you think of the fact that Twin Galaxies is actually finally coming back and not a convoluted? Maybe. Not a convoluted
I'm
mess.
optimistic, but we'll see.
I only just learned it was down a week ago.
Yeah. Well, they tried to make a profit of it, but it failed. So now another person bought it who knows Walter Day and plans on bringing it back to its former glory. But it's going to require a lot of man work to get all these records covered and everything. And he put this manifesto up recently, and it looks good from reading it. But we'll see what happens with it.
There is a site that I've become at least somewhat fond of lately, and whenever I do my High Score podcast, we'll talk about it more. And it's just called highscore.com. And basically the way they do their verification is, it's a little more informal. They do basically crowdsourcing. You post a video or you post a picture. People vote whether it's a legitimate score or not. For a more informal site, I think it's pretty good. It's got some flaws as far as their own scoring system goes, which, having experienced Hexadecathlon for so many years now, and even the old video game decathlons that Game Junkie ran, I'm kind of tuned in to what I think is a good balance between scoring.
I think that upper echelon, real hardcore scoring, you have to be done live with the referee. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing, none of this taping and any of that controversy. Which I think they got to that with, especially with the main games like the Donkey Kongs and stuff. But
I dig the idea of having a website where you can have high scores for 10,000 different games, and if you want to compete with a few friends and post your score, you can do it. But I agree.
I made a video of me.
Eventually, for it to be really successful, it can't just be you post a video. It would have to be you have something like Twin Galaxies did, where you have people who are verified referees, and you have people who are able to confirm on their own merits by seeing it with their own eyes that this happened.
Because that's the problem with the videos. Even Twin Galaxies, I think, is victim of this, where you're like filming the screen and not necessarily you playing, and so you're not on the same hardware. You can use whatever controller, things like that.
I think you have to show both now. I don't know. They've changed it so many times.
I mean, you could show one controller and just play with an NES Advantage. I mean, it's once the video is on the screen, then you really can't see what you're doing at your side. And I know a lot of people like who are really super into Halo would like mod the controllers where they could use like a toggle switch to crouch and stuff like that.
But
if you're the world record holder in Halo, you're already a douchebag.
Yeah.
That kind of.
But we get the idea. There is no perfect system, but if there's a website that could at least get reasonably close to where you can have some fun doing it, I think that's a plus.
I like the referee idea. I think the referee idea is the way to go.
When it gets dead serious, when it gets super serious for a popular game, you have to go that way.
Yes, there's got to be some threshold for that. Like,
Yeah. If I want to
but
post my
I don't
score
think
of
anybody
Super
else is. I've got, like I said, I have a Dr. Robotnik's Meat Bee machine run through
Right.
that I don't think even had a score last time I checked Twin Galaxies a couple years ago. So I basically established the record. I'll be fine with being that guy.
Right.
I'll be the Jason Dahmer of.
Yes.
I posted on highscore.com my high score for Super Sprint, and it's immensely beatable.
Yeah.
But it's a small game. You do it for fun. It's perfect for that. If I ever wanted to, try and flip the machine and play it for 200 levels, I would probably want to find a way to do it live or reasonably close to it.
And being around world caliber, like when I went to the Tetris tournament last year, I'm never going to be in any of those guys' leagues. Being in Papa this week today, being around those guys, I didn't even see any of them play live because I just have fun and playing with you guys and playing my own machines and stuff. But those scores that were on those fucking machines today, just from people casually playing them.
Oh yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ!
No, it's amazing.
I'm never going to be that good. Never.
I hope someday I can have a game or two
Never
like that. Get me on a high score board once or twice, I'm happy.
I'll just be satisfied getting fourth on Pinball Chris's Black Knight 2000. Thank you very much.
Actually, I'm happy that Metallica that's over at Angie's Pizza.
You all right?
I gotta get gas.
Okay.
I pushed Corey's score off of it. I said 3 of the 4 high scores on it. I still can't touch Trent's freaking grand champion score at all. But I got a third
Damn
of it,
Trent.
so like I felt a third of his score was something to be proud of.
Trent Augustine, for you guys who don't know, he runs Tilt Amusements in town here.
Yeah, we talked about it on the last podcast.
You did,
Yeah, he's kind of the Ohio, he represents Yo. Well, I think we kind of had a good State of the Union sort of deal.
Yeah.
We're getting gas. We're about an hour away from
In
home,
a half
so
mile, make a right turn.
thanks, Jane. So we will see you soon. Got a couple episodes in the can and all that stuff, and we're gonna do the whatever you know about Corks.
Thank you for listening to our wonderful rambles.
Yes. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Now you're playing with podcast.
Hey listeners, this is Tatton. Just wanted to take a quick moment and let you know that there's lots of great places you can follow Now You're Playing With Podcast. We have a Facebook page set up, which is Now You're Playing With Fan Page. We have a Twitter account set up, which is NYPW Tweets, or Now You're Playing With Tweets. And, of course, all of the episodes are available for download from NowYou'rePlayingWith.com. So we hope you enjoy the show. If you like it, please take a moment and send us a message. Let us know what you think about it. And we hope to have some more shows coming for you soon. Until then, thanks for listening.
Now you're playing with podcast.